had already covered a lot of them. Very good evening, Saurabh. I'm hoping that yesterday ka discussion is clear with everybody. So we'll continue from where we left, and it will kind of take me 30 minutes or so to finish it off, 30 or 35 minutes. So I'll just share the presentation, and after the session, I'll also give you this presentation so that you can revise. And as I've already mentioned, the entire idea of covering Supreme Court's judgment with you is so that you can use them in your answer writing, and also they can help you in answering some questions for your prelims. So in case after your self reading also you face some doubts, whenever we'll have the next planned mentorship session, we can take up questions also. All right. So this is where we had to start from. We had to talk about the SR Bomai versus Union of India case. Now, if you remember, we have already done a lot of cases like Kesav Nanda Bharti, Golaknath case. We have discussed about Menaka Gandhi case, Indra Sahani case. So all you need to remember is the name of the case. It would be good if you remember the year, because that gives you a contextual understanding of how polity has evolved over the years. And of course, the main point is to remember what was the key point or key takeaway of that particular judgment. So, SR Bomai versus Union of India case talked about federalism. Now, if you remember, Kesav Nanda Bharti case came up with the doctrine of basic structure. तो केसव नंदा भारती केस में क्या बोला गया था? That parliament has the power to amend any and every part of the constitution. जाओ, हम आपको right दे रहे हैं कि आप किसी भी part of the constitution को amend कर सकते हो, but just remember that you do not have to disturb the basic structure of the constitution. So that is where Kesav Nanda Bharti becomes very important, because it says you can amend any and every part of the constitution without disturbing the basic structure. अब यहाँ पर क्या बोला गया सुनिए. ऐसा also, if you remember, court said that we will give you the list of what is basic structure and what is not. So who is going to define basic structure? It is the Supreme Court that is going to define the basic structure for us. So Supreme Court in SR Bomai case said that federalism is a part of basic structure. So the list that we are talking about includes federalism, which means that no government can take away federalism from Indian polity. This is a very important judgment. When in your mains you get questions around center state relations, you must quote this in your answers. That will make it more concrete, and that will give weight to your answers. So please remember, is federalism a part of basic structure? Yes. Which case came up with this idea? SR Bomai versus Union of India 1994. The idea was, SR Bomai said, see, we have states and we have center. Please remember, center and state have individual existence. तो आप ये नहीं बोल सकते that state is actually an agent of the center. They're not satellites. They have their independent existence. और ये कैसे पता चलता है कि states की independent existence है? क्या states center की वजह से आए? Have they been formed because of the center? No. State have constitutional existence. So state का जो existence है वो कहाँ से आया है? It has come through the constitution. So this means that states have their independent identity and you cannot take away their powers. दूसरे शब्दों में बोले तो you cannot take away the federal structure of the constitution. Federal structure मतलब division of power between the center and the state. You cannot take it away. Very, very important. Now, please remember, there are some times when center becomes more powerful than the state. आप पढ़कर आए हैं. For example, during emergency, center becomes very, very powerful and state की powers virtually खत्म हो जाती हैं. But that is an exception. That is not a rule. So please remember, federalism is a basic structure of the constitution. Therefore, you cannot do away with it. This came in the SR Bomai versus Union of India. Pretty simple, straightforward. अगर आपको केशव नंदा भारती समझ में आ गया है तो SR Bomai समझने में प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी. Next judgment is, so after every two judgments, I'll come back and ask you if it is making sense. Next is Vishakha versus State of Rajasthan. Year was 1997. So just to give you a little background so that you understand, this case was about Bhavri Devi. Now Bhavri Devi was working for Rajasthan government and she was working to prevent child marriages in Rajasthan. Now this was the time when it was very very common, very young girls, I mean, पैदा हुई हुई बच्चियों और बच्चों की शादी कर दी जाती थी. It's still prevalent but not to that extent. So Bhavri Devi was made the ambassador, and she was looking for such marriages, and she was trying to stop them. So she intervened in one of those marriages which was of a very powerful family. So this powerful family took it as an offense, and Bhavri Devi was gang raped while she was on duty. So she was working for the government and she was gang raped. So an important question came up. The question was, do we have enough measures to prevent sexual harassment at workplace? So when women are working, when they're out in their workplaces, do they have certain preventive measures जिनसे उनका sexual harassment workplace पर रुक सके? So court ने ये देखा that we do not have any guidelines for the employer. We do not have any measures that are taken by the employers to ensure that women have a safe working space. बस इसीलिए जो विशाखा वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ राजस्थान केस है, उसमें कोर्ट केम अप विद सर्टेन गाइडलाइंस. अब यहाँ पर एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात समझिएगा. पॉलिटी इज अबाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग द कोर कॉन्सेप्चुअल फीचर्स. तो उसको समझने की कोशिश करिएगा. देखिए, वी ऑल नो गाइडलाइंस, लॉज, दीज हैव टू बी फ्रेम्ड बाय द पार्लियामेंट. ये किसका काम है गाइडलाइंस और लॉज बनाना? दिस हैज टू बी डन बाय द पार्लियामेंट. यहां पर ये काम कौन कर रहा है? सुप्रीम कोर्ट कर रही है. This has to be done by the parliament, but Supreme Court is giving guidelines. So is that okay? Because हम separation of powers में तो पढ़कर आए हैं कि लॉ बनाने का काम लेजिस्लेचर का है, लॉ इम्प्लीमेंट करने का काम एग्जीक्यूटिव का है, और डिसीजंस देने का काम जुडिशरी का है. तो ये कैसे सही हो सकता है? नाउ कंसिडरिंग दिस, कोर्ट ने ये बोला दैट जब लेजिस्लेचर अपना काम नहीं करेगा और एग्जीक्यूटिव अपना काम नहीं करेगा, तो जो गैप होगा, जो वैक्यूम होगा, दैट विल हैव टू बी फिल्ड बाय द जुडिशरी. And this is what is called as judicial activism. Judicial activism का क्या मतलब होता है? See, we often assume that judiciary has to step in when something has already happened. So let's say there is some law passed and you have to get it constitutionally checked. Then you will go to judiciary. So we assume that the role of the judiciary is passive in nature. But in this particular case, court said नहीं, हमारा काम active भी है. So we can intervene when we think there is a gap that exists. So इस case में they came up with a detailed guideline जहां उन्होंने बताया that how does an employer has to ensure that the workspace is safe for women. And for this they relied on international treaties. They came up with what is sexual harassment. They came up with entire guidelines which were missing, and talked about how an employer can make a space safe for women and how we can prevent sexual harassment at workplace. अभी देखो हुआ क्या. पहले गाइडलाइन आई और गाइडलाइन के बाद इससे रिलेटेड लॉ आया. सो आई एम श्योर, आई मीन, अगर आपने बेसिक पॉलिटी रीड करी है तो आपने पॉश के बारे में सुना होगा. प्रिवेंशन ऑफ सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट एट वर्क प्लेस एक्ट. सो दिस एक्ट वाज पास बाय द पार्लियामेंट. ठीक है जी. But this came after the guidelines given by the Supreme Court. So whenever they ask you Vishakha guidelines, please remember Vishakha versus State of Rajasthan, 1997. What are Vishakha guidelines about? They are guidelines about prevention of sexual harassment at workplace. How can employers make workspace safe for women? And it is this case in which the definition of sexual harassment became more clear and prominent in the legal language. So this is Vishakha versus State of Rajasthan. Now, are we okay with these two cases, everyone? SR Bomai we are done with. And I'll quickly explain it to you. Varun, SR Bomai is pretty simple. Just remember, in last class we had discussed about केशव नंदा भारती केस. सो केशव नंदा भारती केस में कौन सी डॉक्ट्राइन आई थी वरुण? इट वाज अबाउट बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर. सो क्या बोला गया? दैट यू कैन अमेंड एनी एंड एवरी पार्ट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, but while doing so, please remember you do not have to disturb the basic structure of the constitution. The judiciary said we will give you the list of basic structure. What is basic structure and what is not basic structure ये हम बताएंगे. ठीक है, उसकी लिस्ट हम बताएंगे. So अब जैसे जैसे cases आए, as and when the cases came up, judiciary started defining what is basic structure and what is not. And one such case was SR Bomai, in which the court said, see, federalism is a part of basic structure of the constitution. And since it is the part of the basic structure of the constitution, please remember, states are not satellites. So states are not dependent on the center for their existence. So what is federalism? Federalism is division of powers between the center and the state. So center has its identity, states has their identity, and you cannot separate the two. स्टेट की अपनी आइडेंटिटी है, सेंटर की अपनी आइडेंटिटी है, आप इन दोनों को अलग नहीं कर सकते. मीनिंग, states derive their identity from the constitution. They are not at the mercy of the center. तो सेंटर की मर्सी पे स्टेट्स काम नहीं करते. That is why SR Bomai Varun came up with the idea that federalism is a part of basic structure of the constitution. Give me a thumbs up if we are on the same page so far. Varun, is that clear? Varun, since it was your question, can we get a yes or a no on it? Awesome. Next is IR Koilo versus State of Tamil Nadu 2007. Now, this is again interesting. This talked about Schedule 9 of the Constitution. Now, before I explain IR Koilo case to you, let's quickly revise. I'm sure you have read, but let's quickly revise. What was Schedule 9? So, see, Parliament tried to kind of make itself indispensable by saying, let us make a schedule, and whatever we'll put up in this schedule will be outside the scope of judicial review. इसका क्या मतलब हुआ? So see, court has said that whatever you make, whatever law you make, we will decide whether it is constitutional or not. So we will be the deciding authority. We will be the one who will be reviewing. So we are going to be the people who will be judicially reviewing whatever laws you have made. तो इन्होंने कहा ठीक है, हम एक काम करते हैं, we'll make a schedule, and whatever law we'll put in 9 schedule will be outside the scope of judicial review. मतलब समझ रहे हो? ये बोला गया कि whatever law we will put in 9 schedule will not be decided by the judiciary as to it is constitutional or not. तो हम जुडिशरी से ये पावर ही छीन लेते हैं कि वो रिव्यू कर पाए. If it will be outside the review of the judiciary, then judiciary will never be able to stop us. Judiciary will never be able to cancel out any law that we have made. So 9 schedule was made like a shield to protect any action taken by the parliament. Now सुनने में भी आपको गलत लग रहा होगा. It sounds wrong, right? It sounds arbitrary. So court said ऐसा नहीं होगा. We'll not let this happen. तो कोर्ट ने क्या बोला? We'll give a cut-off date. And my dear students, the cutoff date was April 24, 1973. अब इस cutoff date का क्या मतलब था? Court said anything that you had put in the 9th schedule before 24th of April 1973 will not review it. It will be outside the review of outside the scope of judicial review. We are not concerned about it. But anything that happens and is put in 9th schedule after 24th April 1973 will come under the scope of judicial review. So you are saying that we'll not be able to judicially review anything put in the 9th schedule? No, we'll be able to do it. Only cases prior to 24th April 1973 will not. Any case after 24th April 1973 we will be reviewing. And now, if you're wondering why 24th April 1973, because this is the day on which Kesav Nanda Bharti judgment came. And what did the Kesav Nanda Bharti judgment say? That any and every part of the constitution can be amended, but not the basic structure. And who will decide whether basic structure is being violated or not? It is the judiciary that is going to decide that. So please remember, IR Koilo case ne kya bola? It is related to 9th schedule. What is 9th schedule about? All those laws that parliament wanted should not be reviewed by the judiciary, they started putting it in the 9th schedule. Court said this is arbitrary. We are not going to allow it. We are going to give you a cutoff date. Anything that has happened before 24th April 1973, judicial review not applicable. Anything after 24th April 1973, judicial review applicable. Now, why 24th of April 1973? Because this is the day on which Kesav Nanda Bharti judgment came about. Okay. Next is Aruna Shanbag versus Union of India. Now, this case revolves around euthanasia. Again, this topic is in news, so you can expect a question. ध्यान से सुनना समझना, pretty easy, but you'll be able to understand. See, euthanasia is mercy killing. What is the meaning of mercy killing? Now, you might have seen there are many people who are living in vegetative state. Perhaps they are in coma for years, their body does not move, they're dependent on somebody. So it is presumed that their life is very hard and it is very difficult for them to continue living. So in this case, we have something called as mercy killing, whereby we allow them to die or we help them die so that they don't suffer while they are alive. Now, this is known as mercy killing or euthanasia. Please remember, there are two kinds of euthanasias. One is called as the passive euthanasia, and one is called as active euthanasia. What happens in passive euthanasia is, and how is it different from active euthanasia? सुनिएगा और समझिएगा, important from current affairs perspective also. So, what happens in passive euthanasia is, let's say somebody is on life support, somebody is on oxygen cylinder, and you remove that oxygen cylinder. That is known as passive euthanasia. So, you're not giving them any injection, any pill, or you're not killing them by giving them any drug, but you're removing any support that is keeping them alive. So, when you retract or you take away the support that is keeping that person alive so that they can die, that is known as passive euthanasia. All right. Active euthanasia is when you give somebody some injection, some lethal drug, so that they can die and be relieved of their condition. That is known as active euthanasia. The difference is, in passive, you withdraw the support, in active, you help them die by giving them certain injections or drugs. Now, after Aruna Shanbag versus Union of India case, in India, very important, passive euthanasia is now constitutional. So, courts can allow passive euthanasia, please remember. But please remember, active euthanasia is still not permitted in India. So, active euthanasia बिल्कुल भी allowed नहीं है India में. Passive euthanasia is allowed, and this was after the Aruna Shanbag case. Passive euthanasia is allowed, active euthanasia is not allowed. In this case, the concept of living will also came up. Living will is, let's say somebody is seeing that my condition is deteriorating and feels that I should, I don't know, I mean, maybe in future I'll not be able to move, I'll be in vegetative state. ऐसा feeling आपको आ रहा है based on your medical condition. So you can prepare a will whereby you can give somebody the right to decide that whether I should be given euthanasia or not. So उस will को, where patient gives consent that in case I go into vegetative state in future, please allow me to die, please let me die, court should give me this permission. That is known as the concept of living will. Please understand the difference between passive and active. Please know, in India, passive euthanasia is constitutional. However, active euthanasia is not permitted. So, this was IR Koilo and Aruna Shanbag. I'll come back and ask you if these two are absolutely clear. I'll appreciate if you just let me know so that, yeah, awesome. Wonderful. Next is Lily Thomas versus Union of India. Now, this deals with Representation of People's Act. Easy है? Confused मत हो ना? If you'll understand, if you'll listen to me carefully for 2 minutes, you'll understand this. So, what happened in this particular case was, there's a act which is called RPA 1951. RPA talks about what makes somebody disqualified from contesting elections or from continue being a member of legislative assembly or a member of parliament. तो आरपीए में आपको पूरा डिटेल पता चलता है दैट हु विल बी अलाउड, हु विल नॉट बी अलाउड, व्हेन कैन somebody be disqualified, everything is given in RPA. Now, according to RPA, if you have been convicted, meaning your case, your guilt has been proven, and you have been sent to jail for 2 years or more, आपके ऊपर कोई केस चल रहा था और आपको 2 साल या उससे ज्यादा की सजा हो गई है, so you will be disqualified to be a MP or an MLA. So if you are already an MP or an MLA, you'll now be disqualified because you have been sentenced to jail for 2 years or more. But there was a catch in it. The catch was if somebody files an appeal. Appeal matlab we know we have a hierarchical judiciary. So let's say High Court gave you the sentence and you filed an appeal in Supreme Court. So you will be given a period of 3 months. In 3 महीनों में, if you file an appeal to a higher court, meaning High Court ने judgment दिया था and you filed an appeal to the Supreme Court, then meanwhile your disqualification will be on hold. Let's understand this. Let's say I am the MLA and I've been sentenced to jail for 3 years. Okay. And I decide that I'll be filing an appeal in Supreme Court. So in 15 days, I file an appeal to Supreme Court. As soon as I file an appeal to Supreme Court, my disqualification was cancelled and I could continue being the member of Legislative Assembly. Lily Thomas' case said this is unconstitutional. This should not happen. Rather, as soon as somebody is convicted, that person should be disqualified on the same day. We should not be giving them 3 months. Huh. Later, if their guilt is not proven by the court, then they can resume their positions. However, the disqualification should be immediate. And this idea of immediate disqualification came in the Lily Thomas versus Union of India case 2013. Now, please know this that this was the case that was quoted during the Rahul Gandhi case that happened last year because he was immediately disqualified as a member of parliament based on the Lily Thomas judgment. The 3 month waiting period does not apply anymore. All right. Next is the Nota judgment. Now, all of you are aware about Nota, nothing new. Nota is none of the above. So, Supreme Court mein there was a order whereby Supreme Court said that in next elections, please come up with this option Nota. Nota is nothing but none of the above, whereby while you go and vote, the conventional besides the conventional options that you are given a b c d candidate, there's one more option none of the above where you can say that I don't like any of the candidates, so I'll be voting for Nota. I don't think there is anything fancy in it. All of you know this. Just know that this was based on a Supreme Court order. Next is Shara Banu versus Union of India and others. This is also pretty talked about, and it is about triple talaq or talaq biddat. Now let me explain what is talaq biddat and what is triple talaq. वो उसका ही नाम है. Triple talaq we often call it, but in the technical language it is called talaq biddat. So talaq biddat or triple talaq is when a Muslim man says talaq 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 and there is a instant separation. Now understand that in original Muslim scriptures this is not the process of talaq biddat. After every talaq that you say, there has to be a cooling off period. We don't have to go into the technical details, but know that talaq biddat is not sanctioned by Muslim authorities. It has been evolved by people for their own convenience. The original form of talaq that is permitted according to Sharia laws is based on the idea that once you say talaq, there has to be a cooling off period. Then, second talaq happens. Then, there is a cooling off period. So, nobody was following that technical procedure, and there was a trend where talaqs were happening over WhatsApp, over email, over voice notes. And this practice started becoming so common under the name of triple talaq. So court said, भैया ये बिल्कुल सही नहीं है. This is neither constitutionally correct nor correct according to the Muslim scriptures. So considering this, triple talaq or talaq biddat was held unconstitutional and illegal in the Shaira Bano versus Union of India case. Are we here on the same page so far, everyone? Shrishti, Preetham, Sayali, Ritika. Perfect. Next is Justice K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India. Pretty recent, 2017. यूपीएससी ने ऑलरेडी इस पे क्वेश्चन पूछ लिया है, दोबारा चांसेस कम है पर पता होना चाहिए. कुछ नहीं, इसमें बोला गया राइट टू प्रिवेसी is a part of Article 21. What is Article 21? Right to life and personal liberty. So, right to privacy is a part of right to life and personal liberty. Please know, हमारे जो fundamental rights हैं, they are both explicit as well as implicit. लिखा हुआ सिर्फ right to life and personal liberty है. वहां right to privacy लिखा नहीं है. It's not written in the constitution. But Supreme Court said that when you talk about right to life and liberty, privacy is a part of it. So you have to recognize privacy as a fundamental right under Article 21. All right. Then Navteej Singh Johar versus Union of India. Now, this particular case deals with Section 377. To understand the judgment, please understand what was Section 377. So, we have an IPC, which is British times that we have been using. Now, of course, the name has changed and various things has changed, but that time it was called IPC, Indian Penal Code 1860. Now, according to Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, if two consenting homosexual adults engaged in any sexual conduct, that they will be penalized for it. So if there is any homosexual act that is performed by a couple that is consenting, that is adult, then they can be put behind bars for it. What happened in Navteej Singh Johar was, it said that this section 377 is unconstitutional, meaning if there are two people who are adults who are of same sex and they are engaged in any kind of sexual conduct, then you cannot put them behind bars. That is absolutely not permissible. So, what happened with Navteej Singh Johar versus Union of India? Section 377 was decriminalized, meaning now if two consenting adults are engaging in any sexual act and they are of same sex, they cannot be put behind bars, full stop. However, please remember, we don't have right to marry yet. So, marriage is not yet legally sanctioned between the same sex couple in India. However, Section 377 is now decriminalized after the Navteej Singh Johar versus Union of India case 2018. Are we here on the same page, everyone? If you don't complicate ना, it's easy. और उतना ही करना है आपको, but you have to do it in this manner systematically and you are sorted. You don't have to read pages for it. उतना time भी नहीं है आपके पास, है ना? Okay. Next is Anuradha Bhasin versus Union of India and others. So now this was about internet. अभी हमको पता है, when Article 370 was abrogated in Jammu and Kashmir, then there was a ban on internet communication. There were shutdowns. So court said, see, the challenge was, the plea said that how can government shut down internet? ये तो सही नहीं है. ये तो हमारी freedom of expression को आप छीन रहे हो. You should not do it. So court said, see, it is absolutely okay to get internet shutdowns. Government की necessity है, government करेगी वो. However, while imposing shutdowns, court said that the government should take care of two things. One is necessity and one is proportionality. Please understand these two words carefully. One, necessity, one, proportionality. So it said that internet should be shut down only when it is absolutely necessary. It should not be done just for fun or just for government wanting to get power. So one, it should be done only when it is absolutely necessary. And second, it should be done in proportion. Proportion मतलब जितनी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम उतना बड़ा इंटरनेट शटडाउन. छोटी सी बात पे you should not shut down everything. If the problem is grave, you should have grave measures being taken. And thirdly, it should be temporary. So remember three words. It should be only done when it is absolutely necessary. It should not be done for an indefinite period of time. We should have a temporary time कि हम इतने दिन के लिए कर रहे हैं. And third, it should be proportionate. What do you mean by proportionate? जितनी problem, उतना shut down. It should not be done unnecessarily, it should not be done arbitrarily, and it should not be done for an indefinite period of time. All right. Next is Internet and Mobile Association of India versus Reserve Bank of India 2020. Now, this deals with cryptocurrencies. Now, I'm sure economics में आपने cryptocurrencies के बारे में पढ़ा होगा. Basically, digital currencies, currencies that are over the internet. We don't see it in hard format. So, cryptocurrency are not issued legally by Government of India. Cryptocurrencies, Indian government deal नहीं करती cryptocurrencies में. But what happened in this case was Reserve Bank of India had issued a circular, and it said that no bank will let any dealings happen in cryptocurrency. So basically, if I am dealing in cryptocurrency, bank will seize my account, or bank will not let cryptocurrency payment flow through my account. रिजर्व बैंक ने सर्कुलर पास किया, तो इसको चैलेंज किया गया, एंड कोर्ट सेड ये तो गलत है. कोर्ट सेड यू कैन नॉट स्टॉप टेक्नोलॉजिकल इनोवेशंस. सो बेसिकली कोर्ट ने ये बोला that government of India will not issue cryptocurrency. So government will not give you legal backing on cryptocurrency. But government should also not stop people from dealing with cryptocurrencies. So that circular was cancelled, and Supreme Court said that you cannot take away anybody's right to carry on trade. So cryptocurrencies can be dealt with, but remember, they are not sanctioned by government of India. दोनों में difference है. So today, if I have a 500 rupee note, the government is legally backing it, right? But a cryptocurrency is not legally backed by the government. But at the same time, if I want to deal with it, I want to buy cryptocurrencies, then the government will not stop me from doing it. This was in the Internet and Mobile Association of India versus Reserve Bank of India 2020. So that's it. A very exhaustive 40-slide PPT I've given you. But trust me, if you do this nicely, you're sorted for your answer writing pretty much for your polity. Any questions so far? My request is, अभी आपको questions आएंगे नहीं क्योंकि अभी आपने इसने डिटेल में पढ़ा नहीं है. आपको इसके अलावा कुछ नहीं करना. If you have understood the core concepts which I taught you, just read through this PPT for 10-15 minutes. And if you have any doubts, next time when we meet, keep them handy. So can I quickly have in the chat box a yes or a no as to is everything absolutely clear or not? एकदम बढ़िया से समझ में आ गया. So ये कुछ कल से बचा हुआ था. So I wanted to complete it so that our session kind of completes. Awesome. All right then. Please read. Okay. Acha, I've received your answers. I'll give you the feedback by tomorrow. I'll give sir the feedback by tomorrow and you'll receive it by tomorrow evening. Okay. Those of you who have written your answers, I'll give the feedback. So I think I'm done on my end. This was what was remaining from yesterday. So,
Okay, ma'am.
all right, everybody, take care. Good night. Yes, yes, Anjali, do you have some question? Please shoot. Acha. Okay then. Uh, we can call it a day then. Bye bye. Take care, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I hope the session was useful.